What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode 143 of the Anthony John podcast. Today, I'm bringing on a guest to talk about why you must put your profit first. Now, if you run a business, this conversation, when implemented, I'm telling you, it can increase your bottom line guaranteed. So if you want to increase your profits and take control of your financial future, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Now, before I tell you about today's guest, before I bring her onto the show, if you're at a place where you want to generate more revenue while converting your internal pressure into fuel for your potential, so you can go out and live your big vision, have fun, and do more of what you love, I have a little something for you. Every single week, I set aside a few hours to talk with online entrepreneurs about what's working, what's not working, and help them create a plan to create their visions faster. If you want to grab one of those times to talk with me, simply go to talkwithaj.com. It's 100% free. Normally, I charge up to $1,000 for a strategy session, but since you're listening to this podcast, I'll hook you up with an opportunity to get that strategy session. I'm going to warn you, don't book this call if you're not serious about creating results, because during that call, we're going to dive deep. We're going to find the root that's preventing you from having the results that you want in your life right now. I'll help you craft a strategy so you can figure out cool, this is how I get from point A to point B. So if you're an online entrepreneur, if you're driven, if you're hungry, and you're ready to create your next level results, simply go to talkwithaj.com to grab a time to talk with me. Now, with that being said, let me tell you about today's guest. Her name is Suzanne Mariaga. She's the author of Profit First for Minority Business Enterprises, and she is the chief accountant and profit advisor in her accounting practice. She works with multiple 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs, and she really helps them achieve record-breaking financial independence. When she partners with entrepreneurs to implement profit first strategies, their businesses, they just scale efficiently. And this is what then frees up the business owner to achieve profit levels that they've never really ever thought were possible. And it seems like these entrepreneurs just finish their journeys to discover a whole new financial and time independence. And many have found that they become the first millionaires in their family. So I'm really excited for you to learn from her today. She has so much wisdom to share with you. So with that being said, let's bring her onto the show. Suzanne, welcome.
Hi, glad to be here with you, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited that we're going to talk about some profit first. But I want to back up a little bit before we get into talk about money. How in the world did you get started into the world of accounting and the idea of even putting profit first? Because most CPAs would be like, no, we must track those numbers and we must see what we have left over.
We still got to track those numbers. We still got to see what's left over. There's no avoiding that conversation in the accounting world. But it's interesting because, I have a Big Four background. So you're Anderson in Chicago, later on KPMG. And then I started my own firm about 13 years ago when I had my daughter. And I remember when my first client came to my office, and you know how we're all excited when our first clients come to the office. It's like, somebody decided to take a chance on me. Oh my gosh. And it was a gentleman, and he had a shoebox with him, and he plops down in his chair and he throws his shoebox at my desk. And he's like, you know what, whatever you do, I don't want to pay taxes, And I remember looking at the shoebox. I remember looking at the gentleman, and I end up unraveling all these crinkled up receipts, right? And I get to the bottom of the shoebox, and there's this P&L, or what he calls a P&L. And I'm like, well, don't worry, sir, you're not gonna pay any taxes because frankly, you didn't make any money, right? And he chuckles. A couple days later, he comes back. He's getting this earned income credit. He's getting $2,000 back earned income credit, and he thinks I'm the best accountant in the world, and I think I'm not that bad myself, you know. And then the next year, he does the same thing. He comes back, he brings the same shoebox, he's recycling, right? And it's got fresh more receipts in it. And again, he plops on the chair and he's like, do that magic again for me. Do that magic again. I don't want to pay any taxes. And so I get to the bottom of the shoebox, and I open the shoebox, and, and there's this crinkled up P&L. And I'm like, well, don't worry, sir, you're still not going to pay any taxes because frankly, you didn't make any money. He chuckles, he goes away, and, he comes back, he gets his earned income credit again, $2,000. And again, he thinks I'm the best accountant in the world, and I think I'm not that bad. And then the third year, he still manages to come back. And I'm like, all right, this is not funny. You email me at like 11 o'clock at night because it's the only time that you have. You've grown now. I see that you're stressed out all the time. And and I see that it's just not funny, because I see this man working year after year after year, and he has nothing to show for it, but he still manages to plop down in the chair, still manages to give me the shoe box, that same shoe box. Like, he's saving money, right? He's not buying shoes. And then I get to the bottom of that P&L again. He's still not making money, and it's not funny because now I get to know this man a little bit more. I see that he's working late hours. I see that he doesn't even own his own home. I see that he's not putting away for retirement. And frankly, I don't know what he's working for. In fact, I find that he'd be better off if he just got a job. And that's the reason why, I'm so passionate about Profit First, because he wasn't the only one like that. I had client after client that was like that. I was like that, right? Because we're all on that circle. And it was really just saying, we can't have this anymore. We've got to do something. And that's where meeting Mike Michalowicz and really embracing Profit First really came into handy, and it really became important.
How did you meet Mike?
By Mike, you know what? It was funny. I was part of a conference,
Okay.
and I was part of this business group, and somebody said, you got to read Profit First, because I was at a point that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't stay on this hamster wheel either, because that's the problem that happens in accounting, is we're so focused on sales, we're so focused on revenue, right, that we don't think about our bottom line, and we don't think about our bottom line, then random things happen. And I remember, like, I was like stuck in the situation where we would grow, but then we would lose a client because we didn't have enough people to do the work. And it was just this vicious cycle happening over and over again. And somebody's like, you got to read this book, Profit First. And so as soon as I read Profit First, he started talking about Profit First profession. I was like, I'll pay whatever. I need to be part of this organization. I need to, not for the whole world, but for myself. I need to get Profit First. You know what I mean? And naturally, through Profit First, I met Mike Michalowicz.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's tell people a little bit about what is Profit First, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, Profit First is, it's a system, it's a cash management system. So it's not an accounting system. A lot of people go, I love that accounting system called Profit First. Don't fire your accountants. We still need you to have your accountants, right? We still need those numbers, right, Anthony? We still need to be able to dissect those numbers. But it's a cash management system, and it works with our natural human behavioral design. So literally, as human beings, we're naturally efficient beings. So there's something called Parkinson's law. And what Parkinson's law tells us is that, the more there is of a resource, the more we're going to use, right? And the less of a resource, the less we're going to use, because we're efficient. So what that means is, like, if you go on a diet, right? One of the first things they tell you if you go on a diet is, use smaller plates, right? Because if you eat less, you take in less calories, you're going to consume less. And so, same way it is in business, right? Because you're using a smaller plate, you're going to eat less. When the economy was absolutely booming, like a year and a half ago pre-COVID, my clients are asking me like, oh my gosh, Suzanne, there's this big office space like right down the street from me. And granted, it's too big for me, but I'm going to grow into this office space. I have a feeling that I'm going to have the best year ever in 2020, right? Isn't that what people were saying? And then, like, or Suzanne, I need this copier machine. And yeah, I know I'm going to lease it, but I just have a vision that I'm going to need like this super Xerox machine that costs me $1,000 a month. Or, hey, Suzanne, can I get a corporate car? Or, can I hire this employee? Even though I haven't quite grown into it, I'm going to find work for them to do. But, in times of scarcity, they're asking me different questions, like, what employee can I keep? Even though everybody's been loyal all these years, I can't keep everybody. Or what expenses can I cut? Because now my PPP money is running out, and I got to make sure I make it through the end of this pandemic. And so what Profit First does is literally we create these small plates, right? We create these plates, we create this illusion of scarcity. And the traditional accounting equation is revenue minus expenses equals profit. And so what we say is, what, instead of focusing on revenue and being responsible, we still want you to be responsible, but I want you to pay your profit first. Kind of like Dave Ramsey's envelope system, pay
Sure.
yourself first. We're going to pay our profits first in our business. So literally we're going to create different bank accounts based upon our designated purpose. So we're going to have a bank account for your profit account, your bank account for tax, your bank account for operating expenses, your bank account for owner's pay. Because yes, as an owner, I need you to pay yourself too, right? And so what that means is you literally every 10th and 25th of the month, all money's going to get collected in this one account called the income account. And on the 10th and 25th of the month, we're going to transfer money to your profit account. So you're immediately going to have profit, we're going to transfer money to a tax account, to an owner's pay account, and then finally to an operating expense account. And that operating expenses account, that's all you have left to pay bills, right? And so you're going to have to make really, really wise decisions about, hey, AJ, maybe I have to think about what I'm going to like, how am I going to, how much, what expenses can I afford to keep? I mean, maybe I need to do some competitive bidding. Maybe I need to cut some expenses because my bank account is starting to get low right now.
So good. I've implemented Profit First, I think last year, and it has been a game changer personally for me. Didn't work with a profit coach or anything. I just read the book and I was like, I'm going to do this, and implemented it. And I use YNAB as our budgeting software. You need a budget.com, YNAB.com. And so that's been super, super simple just to set everything up, track everything on 10/25th. It's been a game changer. In fact, I bought a one wheel with my first quarterly profits last year, which was fun.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. And, for so many people, it has been a major game changer too for them. So it's, I'm glad to hear. I mean, literally, it changed my business. It really did a complete turnaround for even us. And we're an accounting firm.
What gave you, how did you give yourself permission to try something completely different? That's like totally counter to what you're probably taught in school and everything that you'd been doing up until that point.
For me, it was kind of like I was I couldn't continue for it to be that way. And, the statistics say that within 10 years, 65% of businesses are going to be closed, and it's and then after 5 years, only half of them are really standing there. So it wasn't a me problem. It was a we problem. It was a universe problem, right? And for me, I couldn't continue to run my business the way I was, because when you compete upon price and you drive the prices down, you take every single client, right? Which is what we're taught in traditional school, traditional accounting equation. What happens is you end up being a statistic. And I knew that I just could not continue going down that path. And so just that behavioral science, applying that natural how we function as humans, I said, I got to try this. This is an amazing system. I've got to try it.
Nice. Now, do you think the reason most people go to business, maybe potentially when it comes to accounting, is they're kind of having a scarcity approach, which is like, what can we cut? 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 Like, is there some middle ground where it's like, yes, like we want to be prudent and track our numbers and all of that, but also how do we have like this abundant mindset where sometimes it's just like, this is the cost to run the business. It is what it is. And let's figure out how to market and sell more. Like, how does a business owner come into that paradox, so to speak?
That is a great question. And it's not a super, super simple answer because, it really starts with why, right? Because every business, you can have a business that's in the same industry as from one to another, and they're going to operate completely differently because they have different goals, right? It's about positioning yourself, if you want to be a low end provider, meaning that you're going to do a volume based business, or if you're going to be more of a boutique business where you're going to have a very high level of service, very, very unique service depending on your customer, right? And so I always say to my clients, you start with why, right? Simon Sinek, you start with why. Why did you go in business? What are your goals, right? Because some people say, I want to be a small business. I want to be a mom and pop. I want to be a local ice cream store. I want the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts to come to me, and I want them to remember exactly what it was like growing up because I'm going to be a memory in my community. And then there's some people that, what? I want to have like a franchise. I want to have a grocery store in every single city, that's doing this. And I want to like, just really leave a legacy of having these major franchises, right? All around the country or even around the world. But what's going to happen is each of these are going to have a very different strategy, right? Depending on if I want to be the mom and pop store or if I want to have the mega empire with the franchise. Same way with business owners. You have to start with why. You have to start with what is my end goal? What is it that I really, really want? And how much do I need to make, right? How much does my business need to generate for me? And how big of an empire do I want to run? How many employees do I really want working with me, right? Because that's going to dictate how I structure my business, right? Because maybe, I want to have just a great life being that ice cream store owner. And what I need to do is go, how many customers can I realistically bring in my small town, right? I'm not going to be serving millions if my town only has 30,000 people, right? That's not going to happen. And so what's going to happen is, I'm literally going to go, how many customers can I serve? What does my monthly revenue need to be? And then how many visits, how much do I want to target per visit? And then back into the pricing that way. So it's going to be a combination of not only what can I cut, right? Because at some point, most of those actually I meet, or most of them are actually very, very responsible, for the most part. It's going to be, but where they mess up is, is terms of their strategy, in terms of marketing, being realistically into to how many people they can serve. And then there's some businesses out there that, no matter how many widgets you make, you'll never be profitable, right? Just because there's no demand for that type of service or product. And so it really becomes this, you have to look at it from all angles. What do I really want from my business? How many can I serve? And then, after, and then of course, obviously, being responsible about those expenses too.
How do you think people get clear on the why, or the what that they want to create? What have you seen helps people get clear on that?
I always start with just a basic journaling, like what does winning look like in my business, really? Like what does it look like? Like, what is it, what makes me feel that I want at the end of the day? Like, is it my business having a certain amount of retained earnings, right? Is it, it being able to run without me, right? Because then I can think about my strategy of who do I need to start bringing in to certain positions, like in order to run the company without me. How much do I need to make every year to have a lifestyle that I want to have, right? And then also in terms of like how many years do I have left to work, right? Because I need to start building my retirement account, right? Or my exit strategy, because businesses sell either as a percentage of sales or multiple of profit. And so I need to start building that strategy in too with that. So it's defining of as, not just the why, but what does winning look like? And then algebraically breaking into like, what does that number need to be in terms of revenue? And then what's the price points needs to be in order to generate that revenue?
Nice. What would your journaling process look like around that? I'm curious.
I, I think journaling looks like different things for different people. We have a Trello board. We love our Trello board. For some people, it's like it looks like paint on the wall. When I look at theirs, I'm like, oh, that was a great goal. But they understand it, so that's great. I think it looks different for many, many different people depending on their personality. But at the end of the day, if they can get, we can break it down into a number. We can get to the how.
So is it like looking at it like a gross number? Like I want to make X amount of dollars. Let's just use the easy number. I want to make $500,000 a year, and then breaking it down from there.
Exactly. So if your 500,000 is your net, then we would figure out in Profit First, there's something called a target allocation percentage. And that's really what, and Mike talks about in his book, there was a study done by Profit First professionals about what does healthy companies look like. And they do something called common size financials, which are like percentage of real revenue for each category of expense, of tax, of owner's pay, a profit. And literally they take those numbers and we would compute what the gross, what the revenue needs, what the total revenue needs to look like based upon that number is what happens.
Awesome. So how does somebody go on the journey? Maybe they use a tool like this and they're like, cool, well, here's how I'd net $500,000 a year. Here's how many units I would need to sell. How do I do it? Like, how do they like figure out how to compute the how? Just curious.
The how it's an algebraic formula. It's really what it is. So it breaks into what percentage allocation you're going to be. And then we have a special tool that we use in house that computes that from that standpoint. And then of course then it's just figuring out, it tells you like what mats and subs you need to use, and then based upon your product or who you're selling to or service wise, how many customers you need to service at a particular price point. And at some point, you start to know your averages, right? Like even in an ice cream store, that everybody's got two parents, two kids, and what's their average purchase, and so you're able to kind of backward
Sure.
algebraically figure that out.
So let's say they had to have 200 people buy ice cream every single month to hit their numbers. And let's say they're only having 50 people right now. So then there's going to be a gap of like, how do I get 150 more people to buy? where is it just blind faith and hope? And where is it like responsibility to figure out how do we get 150 other people to come in every single month?
Right. And that's where that marketing really, or that strategy is really different depending on the company. And so that may be coaching them on sales, like how do you upsell, right? So how do you
Awesome.
increase that amount? How, potentially it's an increase in price, right? If you live in a small town and you're not covering your costs, you're not going to be able to bring in maybe people from other surrounding towns, right? Because there are other ice cream stores that you have to compete with. Or so maybe it's a matter of increasing price, or maybe it's a matter of too of creating such a position where like maybe you're the only ice cream store in 60-mile radius that sells blue ice cream, that has a Smurf outside of it. You know what I mean? So the kids
Sure.
need to come to this carnival of Smurfs in order to get this ice cream. So again, it really just depends on the strategy and the situation that you're in.
Awesome. And you mentioned this guy, I know it's a fictitious story that brought in, well, maybe it was a real story, that brought in
Oh,
his
he's real.
receipts. He's a real guy. Okay. That brought in his receipts in a box. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they have this mentality of like, I don't want to look at it. I just want to market and sell, want to run the business. They don't want to do the boring, mundane tracking of money. And yet science has proven like what gets measured gets managed. What we focus on expands. Like this is proven by science. So what advice would you have for entrepreneurs to lean into their edge, to track their numbers, rather than just being like this guy and be like, well, here's my receipts in a shoebox. Like, yeah, what advice would you have for them to lean into that responsibility?
And I think you said it perfectly. When you have random actions, you get random results, right? And it really is about stepping back and going, what's important to me? What do I want to get to? And then creating those metrics along the way in order to make sure that you are headed in that direction, or you're on target, or you're actually already met that goal and that you don't waver from it, right? And so it's important to maybe track those numbers. And I'll tell you, any business owner, we all have we all have 24 hours in a day, and hopefully just 8 hours of work. Hopefully none of us are going to like 20-hour a day work weeks or work days. But and so I actually recommend that most people don't do it themselves. You either have an in-house bookkeeper that's doing it, you're outsourcing that to get that done, and then say, hey, these are the monthly reports that I want to see every single month, and have those auto-generated so you could able to see immediately, hey, I'm on target, I've veered off to the left, I've veered off to the right, because you want to catch that bleed before it's 6 months later or a year
Sure.
later, like the shoebox guy, right?
Yes. And what advice, well, let me ask a different question. A lot of people, I think when they think hire a bookkeeper, they think it costs an astronomical amount of money and they believe it's out of reach. What is like the average cost of like a bookkeeper per month?
It's going to depend on the size of
Sure,
the
sure.
company, right? Because my ice cream shop is going to be a lot less than my multi-million-dollar business, just because one
Of
transactions that are going
course.
to happen. So I think it goes in phases. When you're a startup business, to get your payroll service involved, I think you're probably going to be around 300 to 500 a month
Awesome.
easily with that. And then, once you're in the bigger businesses, I usually say around 2 million, you're probably going to start to bring somebody internally, right? In order to start to process that for you. And then obviously when you're at 30 million, you've got a controller in place that's going to be helping you. And then maybe outsource CFO that's helping kind of look at things. And then as you get bigger, you're eventually going to have a CFO. So I think it's going to go into phases in terms of like where your business is at any particular time.
Yeah, well, it's amazing because even if it's starting at $300 or $500 a month, somebody may be like, well, that's $300 or $500 a month I could put into marketing. I would have them consider that it's $300 or $500 a month that actually increases their capacity to actually show up and do the marketing and sales more powerfully. Because what's happening for a lot of people is they're subconsciously carrying this energy around of like, oh, the tax man or the tax woman's out to get me. And like it's this subconscious pressure that they're not even consciously aware of that they're carrying around all year long until they finally give you the shoebox. Like, oh, I'm done with the pressure. Take the burden from me. And so it's worth astronomically more money to pay you the $300 to $500 or more dollars a month, or someone like you, because then that burden is lifted and there's more joy and more freedom and more confidence and certainty to go do what you do, and you'll make more money, guaranteed.
Oh yeah. I mean, just think about your hourly rate, right? You can do the $26 an hour work,
Sure.
right? Or you can do the $1,000 hour work, right? And as a business owner, what's going to move your needle the farthest is $1,000 out. It's your strategy. It's putting the right people in the right places. They say that only 4% of companies ever hit $1 million in revenue. And the thing that they struggle with is they never figure out how to delegate. They never figure out how to let go, how to let people really work in their zone of genius, how to motivate them. And so they stay small, right? And again, yes, you can do your own bookkeeping. You probably can do an okay job, but think about the opportunity cost of that time, right? Like
Sure.
you said, you could be easily out there, training your new sales staff. You could be figuring out what makes your customer happy, spending more time with your customer even is probably worth more, right? Because there's upsell opportunities when you do a good job. But if you're doing bookkeeping, you're never going to be facing your customer.
Yeah. And what's your favorite strategy for increasing profits at the moment?
You're gonna hate me on this. It's really taking a surgical approach. It depends, again, going back on the goal. It can be a combination of reducing the expenses, doing competitive bidding to get those expenses down. It could be raising prices, but then it could be positioning, right? Because not everyone can raise prices. I think one of the things that you have to be careful of right now that's happened in the COVID world is we are under a hyperinflation type of environment, right?
Yes.
The cost of lumber is 50% to double what it used to be, a year ago, right? And if you're charging what you charged in 2019, right, because you were like not wanting to raise prices because you were wanting to be kind to your customers, you're going to be absorbing that through your profit, right? And if you're absorbing it through your profit, that means that, if you're increasing your salaries for your employees, right, because now they can make more working at Kroger's and Walmart, right, $15 an hour, right, that you're not going to be able to retain the best and brightest. So you have to really keep a good handle on what's going on, constantly watch your financials, watch those margins, see how your margins are being impacted right now, in the COVID, like every single month. Watch what's happening on there. Watch what's happening to your cost, your direct labor, your direct costs that's associated with creating your services that you provide, or even the products that you're manufacturing.
Is there like an average kind of across the board inflation rate that should be adjusted for coming into 2021 and beyond?
You know what? What used to be, you really can't count on. There, you used to see on average 3% CPI. You really can't count on that now. You just have to watch your books, watch those vendor invoices that are coming in, and really keep a great pulse on it to make sure that those common size metrics are staying consistent.
What about those service-based businesses that are different? Like there's a lot of people, at least in my world, who are online digital marketer, service-based people, right? Like you're very familiar with that industry. So they don't necessarily like the cost of technology isn't necessarily increasing. The cost of service providers aren't necessarily increasing. So how can they adjust with this mentality as well?
Being a service provider, it really is going to be about positioning yourself and differentiating yourself from the next service provider. That's really what it's going to come down to, because, there are people that are charging $1,000 for Facebook ads, that service every month. There are people charging $3,000 a month for Facebook ad servicing, and they're doing the same thing. But the one that's having 3,000 is saying, "I'm going to make you look like you could be in like New York Times Magazine or Glamour Magazine." You know what I mean? On that Facebook ad, versus the other one says, "You know what? I'm going to use cartoon characters." So it's good. So it really is about positioning yourself and being known for what you do, and that's going to command your prime rate from a service provider standpoint.
So for service providers, is it really, I mean, outside of positioning, is it also just come down to certainty? Like I'm certain in the value that I can bring you. I'm certainty that I can get you the specific transformation, and this specific transformation is worth X amount of dollars, and it is what it is.
You mean value billing? Value billing is very important. Obviously, you definitely want to be very confident and what you're able to bring to the market. Collecting those testimonials is going to be really important, where you've been able to show your clients, or future clients, what you've done in the past, because the past does predict, the future results on there. And it's just like, again, just really becoming known in your industry for what you do.
Awesome. Awesome. What are some big mistakes that you're seeing entrepreneurs making when it comes to, profit and accounting and all of that good stuff?
One of the big things, the biggest thing that I see is just not having a plan, right? Just not having a plan, like my shoebox guy, right? Like they're on pens and needles, like, how much do I owe at the end of the year? And I'm like, you don't know already? You know what I mean? You should already know. You should be tracking these as you go along. So just not having a plan and then sticking with the plan is one of the things that I see. The other thing is just staying with the familiar, right? Like people just, they don't want to, they're not monitoring. Maybe I always give the example of my kids, they every year they have these beautiful catalogs, right, with fundraiser information on it. And it's interesting because every year it's like, mom, you need to get a new magazine subscription so they can get the class pizza party, right? And it's funny, they don't go to their dad, they just come to me for this pizza party, magazine subscriptions. And it was funny because, I was like walking through my office probably last June, and I'm like, all these magazine subscriptions are there. And it's interesting because they auto renew each other. So they auto renew. And then my kids come to me and go, can you buy another one for their pizza party fundraiser? Because they really, really want that ice cream and pizza. And it's funny because I'm walking through the office and I'm seeing these stacks and stacks of magazines, but nobody's reading them. Nobody's reading them because we've all been meeting under Zoom, right? They've been meeting under Zoom. Nobody comes in the office anymore besides my admin. And we have these lovely magazines that nobody's using. And I'm like letting them renew of all things. I'm letting them renew. And so just going back to your P&L and go, what's the ROI on every single expense? What am I not using anymore? I'm not, like, why am I getting these magazine subscriptions when nobody's sitting in my lobby anymore? I mean, they'd be better off to save the trees, right? Than spend on these things, looking at like, you're in Texas, right? And Anthony, one of the things that we went through in Texas was, when we lost our power, right?
Mhm.
During that crazy snowstorm. Oh my gosh, that was insane. The people that got hurt were the people with the variable electrical or the variable electrical bills, right? The variable utility
Sure.
bills. And maybe it's better to start hedging that, right? Getting into a fixed rate, and taking a look at. So just keep in mind that what served you a year ago may not serve you anymore, or even the office spaces. Like how many people are now working from home? Like why am I spending a few $1,000s a month for rent? Maybe I need to be looking at when is this lease going to expire so I can get out of it and start creating that transition plan. So just constantly keeping a track of, when are things going to, what's really serving me, what's generating an ROI, what's even necessary anymore, and getting out of that.
So what I'm hearing you say is the next time the kids are like, "Okay, buy this magazine. When you want a pizza party," you're like, "How many pizzas do you need? You need 4? You need 5 pizzas? I'll just buy you the pizzas and we'll call it even."
Exactly. For the whole class. If you go Little Caesars, then like, man, you're really good.
So good. Amazing. If you could give yourself some younger, like you go back in time and give your younger self wisdom to help you get results faster, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, the younger Suzanne, I would say, you know what? Start with why and take your profit first.
Awesome. Cool. Well, if people want to learn more about you, maybe they want to hop on Zoom, figure out their strategy, hire you to take care of their books, take care of the taxes, how can they connect with you?
The best way to connect with us is we have a Profit First Masterclass where we teach you literally the ins and outs of Profit First. If you go to Profit First Masterclass with Suzanne Mariga, you'll be able to take that class for free. The other thing that we have is we have a brand new book that's coming out. It actually comes out May 25th, but you can order the book online now. You can either go to Barnes and Nobles to get the print copy, or I think Amazon will start selling it soon. But definitely go online. It's called Profit First for Minority Business Enterprises. And I don't care if you're a minority or not. This book is amazing for you. I give some of my favorite tax strategies, like how to create generational wealth without increasing expenses, reduce your taxes without increasing expenses. And we're going to go through some serious things like, setting up some, how do we create longevity with our employees? They vest if they leave before they vest because they're like, deuces, I got another job that pays me a whole dollar more an hour. Then all that deduction just goes into your coffers when you retire, so it's just literally like how to create wealth using tax strategies also in that, as well as if anyone ever gets into government contracting out there, we talk about how to definitely avoid the traps in government contracting. So, and of course, profit first. So definitely, I would say check out that book.
Awesome. And where can they go to grab the book?
They can either go to Barnes & Nobles to grab it, or they can go to Amazon.com to grab it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, there you have it, my friend, Suzanne Mariga in the house. I can't stress enough how important this is to put your profit first. Like, the thing is like, even if you just make the decision to put 1% first, like, do it. Like, seriously, to start where you're at. It could be more, it could be less, but just start with you're at. Seriously, what you focus on expands, and what gets measured gets managed. So why not make the decision today? I'm talking about, like, why not draw a line in the sand today and set a full-on commitment to, like, take a profit today, like, period. Like, just make the decision. I've personally experienced magic when I made this decision in my own business. Like, my business finances, they completely transformed when I made this decision to take my profit first and follow the system that Suzanne shared in this podcast. You know, it's kind of crazy. Like, with a lot of transformational wisdom, this is simple to do and it's simple not to do. And what I found time and time again is part of being unstoppable in life and business is simply doing the simple stuff consistently, day in, day out. And I know that if you'll decide to do that, I know your entire life will transform. So that's all I have for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. I hope it served you. I hope it's really inspired you to take control of your financial future. If you know someone who needs to hear this episode, send it over to them in their DMs, screenshot it, share it on social media, send them an email, text message, whatever you have to do to get this episode into their ear holes. And also, please keep those 5-star reviews coming over on iTunes, because that's what helps get the show found and serve more people. So thank you so much for being here. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.